3 months ago, I did something that most people would have called insane. I deleted Windows off my main computer. Not a backup drive, not a test laptop I don't care about. My actual daily driver, the machine I use for work, for editing, for everything. And I replaced it with something free, something most people have never touched, and something the tech industry has been quietly building toward for the better part of a decade. I'm talking about Linux. And by the time this video is over, you're going to understand why hundreds of thousands of people just like me did the exact same thing this year, and why Microsoft might actually be worried about it. So let's rewind a little, because to understand why this shift is happening right now, you need to understand what changed. For almost 30 years, Windows was just the default. You bought a computer, it came with Windows, and that was that. Linux existed in the background, mostly used by developers, server administrators, and a small, dedicated community of hobbyists who liked tinkering with their operating system for fun. It had a reputation, fair or not, of being complicated, ugly, and honestly kind of intimidating for a regular person to touch. But somewhere along the way, that story started to crack. And the cracks didn't come from Linux getting better, although it absolutely did. They came from Windows giving people reasons to leave. Here's the core problem, and it's bigger than most people realize. Windows 11 requires a security chip called TPM2, and that single requirement locked out millions of otherwise perfectly functional computers from ever being able to upgrade. On top of that, Microsoft officially ended support for Windows 10 back in October of 2025. That means no more security updates, no more patches, for a version of Windows that was still installed on a massive share of computers around the world. So picture this. You've got a laptop that works completely fine. It opens your browser, it runs your spreadsheets, it does everything you need. But suddenly you're being told it's either unsafe to keep using, or you need to buy a brand new machine just to stay current. For a lot of people, that felt less like an upgrade and more like being pushed out the door. And it wasn't just the hardware requirements. It was everything else stacked on top. Ads appearing inside the start menu. Being forced to sign in with a Microsoft account just to set up a brand new PC, even one you own outright. A growing list of background AI features, data collection, and telemetry that a lot of users never asked for and can't fully turn off. None of these things alone would have caused a mass exodus. But together, they added up to a feeling a lot of longtime Windows users started describing the same way. It doesn't feel like my computer anymore. So where did all these frustrated users go? This is where the numbers get genuinely surprising. According to StatCounter, Linux's desktop market share worldwide sat under 3% for years, barely a rounding error next to Windows. But in the United States specifically, Linux crossed the 5% mark for the first time back in June of 2025. And then something even bigger happened. By July of 2026, Linux desktop usage in North America had jumped past 10%, according to the same tracking data, nearly doubling in a single month. Now, I want to be fair here, because some analysts push back on that number, pointing out that a chunk of it came from reclassifying browsers that were previously listed as unknown. It's a real debate, and you'll find tech forums arguing about it right now. But even the skeptics agree on one thing. The underlying trend, more everyday people choosing Linux over Windows, is real, and it's accelerating. And here's a mini reveal that might genuinely surprise you. A big part of this shift didn't come from office workers or programmers. It came from gamers. For years, the single biggest reason regular people avoided Linux was simple. Their games didn't run on it. That excuse quietly disappeared. Valve, the company behind Steam, built a compatibility tool called Proton that lets thousands of Windows-only games run smoothly on Linux, and it powers their popular Steam Deck handheld. The result? Steam's own hardware survey recorded Linux gaming usage hitting an all-time high in early 2026. Think about that for a second. The community that used to have the strongest reason to stick with Windows is now one of the biggest reasons people are leaving it. Now let's talk about what this actually means for real people, because statistics only tell half the story. For everyday users, switching to Linux isn't just about saving money, even though it is completely free. It's about control. Distributions built for beginners, the kind of Linux you can install in under 20 minutes, now look and feel shockingly close to Windows, with familiar taskbars, file explorers, and settings menus. For small businesses and schools, it means not being locked into constant subscription costs and forced hardware refresh cycles. And for privacy-conscious users, it means an operating system that isn't quietly sending your usage habits back to a corporation every time you turn on your computer. But here's the twist almost nobody talks about. Linux was never actually the underdog it's made out to be. Behind the scenes, it already runs more than half of the world's server infrastructure. Every single one of the world's 500 fastest supercomputers runs on it, a streak that's held steady since 2017. The websites you visit, the cloud services you stream from, a huge amount of that infrastructure has been running on Linux this entire time. The desktop was really the last place it hadn't fully broken through. Which raises an interesting question. If Linux was always this dominant everywhere else, why did it take Windows making people this uncomfortable for regular users to finally notice? So what happens from here? If this current pace continues, some industry estimates suggest Linux could approach 6% of global desktop share by the end of this year alone, a number that would have sounded like fantasy just 3 years ago. Microsoft isn't blind to this either. Expect to see softer messaging around upgrades, more flexibility for older hardware, and probably some quiet damage control on the more controversial features baked into Windows 11. Because once people realize there's a real, working alternative that respects their hardware and their privacy, that genie doesn't go back in the bottle easily. So did quitting Windows fix everything for me? Honestly, no, not completely. There were a few frustrating days figuring out driver support and one specific piece of software I had to find a workaround for. But the bigger realization was this. For the first time in years, my computer felt like it actually belonged to me again. And whether or not you ever install Linux yourself, the fact that millions of people are even considering it tells you something important about where computing might be headed next. The era of just accepting whatever your operating system decides to do might finally be coming to an end. If you found this interesting, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives like this one, because this story is far from over.